ASEAN is made up of 10 diverse markets, uniquely positioned at the heart of global trade routes. Home to a rapidly rising and affluent middle class, one of the fastest growing digital landscapes, manufacturing hubs and abundant natural resources. ASEAN's strong fundamentals are driving its growth and resilience. With our knowledge and insights on local markets, Standard Chartered can help you accelerate your growth and navigate the complexities of each market. As you expand across ASEAN, we can support you with end-to-end solutions, streamlining processes across multiple jurisdictions, making it more efficient for you. We are leading on the ASEAN regional connectivity to integrate trade and payments in the region. To support the growing cashless ecosystem, we've digitized our cash management. From virtual accounts to a wide range of APIs, we've optimized digitization for your transaction and reporting needs. We are investing in fintech solutions and building new business models, creating efficiencies and better experiences for your customers. When it comes to working across ASEAN's supply chains to finance your imports, exports or inventory, and raising capital for your business, our award-winning capital market solutions are customized to your needs. As you expand outside your home market, our dynamic hedging offering helps your treasury team manage volatility, ensure price consistency, and deliver competitive margins. We're committed to promoting economic and social development in our markets. Our value and philosophy are embedded across our banking products and practices. With $75 billion committed towards sustainable development goals, we can help your business make a positive impact. ASEAN's future is bright. As your trusted banking partner, we are committed to supporting your growth ambitions, co-creating innovative and winning solutions with you. We are Standard Chartered. We are here for good.
All right, so Sawadee Krap, and then good afternoon to everybody who is joining our webinar. Today's event is ASEAN Business Forum 2020 Thailand session, and our theme today is Thailand Resilient and Ready for Trade. Now, before I start off, I would like to give a few instructions on how to use the Blue Jeans network that you are on right now. Welcome back for those of you who have joined our webinar before. So for those of you who have not joined before, just a few instructions. If you're logged onto this webcast via your laptop, you will note that there's a slide bar that you can slide to allow to adjust the screen size of the presenter and also the presentation on your screen. On the right side, if you note, there is a bar as well with a bunch of icons. If you're on mobile devices, it would be on the top right. So talking about the icon, we have the speech bubble icon, and that allows you to communicate with the moderator for any technical difficulties. The moderator will also tell the technical support to assist you if you have any questions right there. So that's the speech bubble. The next two icons is the graph icon and the Q&A icon, and that lets you cast your votes. If there's a poll or a vote that the moderator wishes you to participate in, you can click on those icons right there. So it's a icon that looks like a poll or a graph right there, and there's a Q&A that you can ask questions via there. And the presenters will be answering all your questions during the Q&A session. So please save your questions for the Q&A sessions after all the presentations. So again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Danny Pichapat, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. Our event today is Thailand Resilient and Ready for Trade, and it's part of a Standard Chartered Bank ASEAN Business Forum 2020 webinar series. So earlier this month, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, and also Indonesia ran their individual webinars already. Today is Thailand, and the last event will be held on the 18th of September by Standard Chartered Bank Philippines. So today we are very honored to have Mr. Bunyarit Kalayanamit, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, to be our keynote speaker. Then we will have a panel of speakers with unparalleled expertise in their fields. We have Ms. Duangchai Asawatjintajit, Secretary General, Thailand Board of Investment, Dr. Girida Paupichit, Director of Economics Intelligence Service, Thailand Development Research Institute, and we also have Mr. Marcus Lorenzini, President and Chief Executive Officer, Siemens Energy Limited Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, Managing Director, Siemens Power Operation Incorporated Philippines, Siemens Energy, and also the head of Siemens Energy Generation Sales ASEAN. And we have Dr. Tim Leelahapan, PhD, economist of Thailand Standard Chartered Bank. So if you are a serious investor and would like to seriously invest in Thailand and would like to know what is happening in Thailand right now, this webinar is the exact session for you. So let's start up our session with a warm welcome by Mr. Palakon Wangli, President and CEO of Standard Chartered Bank. Please, Mr. Palakon.
ครับ สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon and good morning. Mr. Bunyarit Kalayanamit, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Commerce, ladies and gentlemen. First off, thank you for joining Thailand Resilient and Ready for Trade webinar. As Kun Danny said, this is part of Standard Chartered Bank ASEAN Business Forums, which we run across 6 ASEAN markets in September. We started off late last month when we rolled out the main ASEAN Business Forum and have over 5,000 audience worldwide participating in our webinar. Today we have almost 400 people registered across 22 countries. And as you can imagine, ASEAN is very important to our bank and the global business communities. As we have done the research survey recently among CFO and treasurers in Europe and the US, they claim that ASEAN is among priority markets for international expansions, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic headwind. I think with Standard Chartered global network worldwide, we like to ensure that our international clients do not miss the business opportunities in the region. In the meanwhile, I think it's also opportunities for the local business to prosper as well. As you're aware, Thailand is widely recognized for our measurement and control over this COVID, and we are ready, to take off, post COVID situations. Thai government has resumed our 20 years national plan to transform the nation into a high-income countries. We want to convert EEC or Eastern Economic Corridor into reality, and this is very crucial for our success. The plan or investment project worth US $54 billion has already kickstarted, and we open for more investment. We are honored today to have His Excellency to deliver a keynote, as well as the industry experts and leaders who will share their view how and why Thailand is ready for the trade and investment. Thank you once again for joining our webinar today, and I hope you enjoy the insight that Standard Chartered is bringing to you. Thank you so much.
Next up, please welcome, right here on screen, Mr. Bunyarit Kalayanamit, Permanent Secretary, Thailand's Ministry of Commerce, for the opening keynote. So when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all distinguished speakers and participants. Well, I don't know which is supposed to be the proper greeting words for all of you, because we are in different part of the world. So I rather say good afternoon to those who are in the countries in this region, and good morning to those who are in the Western countries, and maybe good evening to those who are in the east of Thailand. But certainly I'm not going to say good night at this juncture. Okay. Anyway, well, it is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today for the ASEAN Business Forum 2020 to address the important theme of Thailand resilient and ready for trade. Well, this online conference today is just something that we now here in Thailand keep saying that we could turn the crisis into an opportunity. Now we are scattered around different corners of the world, but we still manage to communicate with one another through modern technology, which is cost-saving and more convenient. So we know well about this online communication. We have been using it for our personal purpose every day, but I think one can hardly think that the online conference like this would become the new normal, quote unquote, for our daily lifestyle this soon. Well, coming back to the topic of our discussion today, now we are in the situation where we could hardly ever think that it could happen, taking into account the modern technology in public health in the world. But now we have to admit that COVID-19 pandemic presented significant hurdles for the economic development of Thailand, as it disrupted the flow of vast goods and services. As we are an export-oriented country, Thailand has to adjust and adapt to this new situation. The past few months have proven that Thailand is more than resilient and can persevere when facing both public health and economic challenges. The international community has recognized Thailand as one of the most viable and trusted countries with strong public health affairs, and certainly that leads to the strong confidence in Thailand as a trusted destination for trade, investment, and tourism. Thailand has strong potential to become a regional trade hub. The country's ideal geographical location and extensive infrastructure simply mean Thailand could serve as a product distribution center for the ASEAN countries and beyond. Well, abundant natural resources and competent human capital make Thailand an appealing target for foreign firms to expand offices, headquarters, and operations. As a part of our long-term strategy, Thailand also focuses on promoting entrepreneurship and streamlining trade rules, regulations, and processes for conducting business. We are also putting a lot of effort to ensure sustainable economic development by supporting innovation and technology uses in industry to help reinforce our competitiveness in the global market. To maintain our position as one of the world's biggest exporters, Thailand is focusing on strengthening our regional supply chain to minimize negative impacts from future crises. That policy has given a good proof during the outbreak of COVID-19, when Thailand's exports, even though dropping, but still we can manage to keep it consistent with the global trends. At the same time, we can witness strong expansion in our food products. As we proudly keep saying that Thailand is the kitchen of the world. And if talking about the overall export performances, we are still doing better than most countries in the region and many other countries around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic increased global demand for potential goods that serve the so-called new normal lifestyles, including greater reliance on digital trade and innovative delivery methods. For example, consumers are now more likely to buy ready-to-eat or ready-to-cook meal as opposed to eating at the restaurant like before. It is just a part of the new lifestyle where people spend more time in their residence rather than coming out. Thailand can utilize our core strength in agricultural and food sectors to serve this need, as well as the rising demands for food security. Therefore, the Ministry of Commerce has launched urgent measures to promote the export of processed foods to generate income for farmers and producers, such as promoting the quality and standard of Thai products in the global market, utilizing contract farming to ensure fairness for both farmers and business, and negotiating trade agreements with our trading partners, especially on e-commerce basis issues. Besides the agricultural and food sectors, medical equipment, pharmaceutical, and wellness tourism all have promising prospects in becoming key drivers of the Thai economy in the future, as consumers all over the world are demanding better care for their health and welfare. Trade wars may permanently change the supply chain of the medical equipment industry, resulting in increasing protectionism in healthcare services of countries around the world. In response to these changes, Thailand has stepped up to provide the market with a viable supply, both for goods and services. Our investment framework aims to attract R&D and high technology investment from foreign countries. You might have heard about Thailand's 4.0 strategy. Well, Thailand 4.0, to elaborate it a little bit, is an economic model that aims to unlock the country from several economic challenges resulting from past economic development models. We have gone through 3 eras of economic development. If we put those in the series, we can start from Thailand 1.0, where we placed emphasis on agriculture, and then Thailand 2.0, which related to the light industry as a result of industrialization, and then advanced and heavy industries and exports were focused during Thailand 3.0 as a result of globalization. Now we have started with Thailand 4.0, which we intend to have a value-based economy with an emphasis on research and development, science and technology, creative thinking, and innovation. Well, the Thai government is committed to transforming Thailand into a value-based economy by putting all efforts to promote the so-called new S-curve industries. We have 5 groups of them, starting from food, agriculture, and biotechnologies. Secondly, health and wellness and biomedical. Thirdly, smart devices, robotics, and mechatronics. Fourthly, digital Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and embedded technology. And lastly, creative industry, and high-value services. On my part, for the Ministry of Commerce here, the Ministry of Commerce has expedited the amendment of the Foreign Business Act to reduce trade barriers and enable trade facilitation in targeting S-curve and new S-curve industries. Through the S-curve promotion policy, the Ministry of Commerce set a goal to raise Thailand's international trade value to rank top 5 in Asia by 2027, up from where we were at number 8 in 2019. We will achieve this target by focusing on particular industries like automobiles, smart electronics, biotechnology, logistics and aviation, biofuels and biochemicals, digital technology, just to name a few. There is some interesting information I'd like to share with you. During the COVID-19 pandemic in Thailand, 10 business sectors emerged with significant growth. These businesses are primarily related to fundamental and technological demands of consumers, such as food, medicine, and logistics. You can guess that. They are, first, manufacturing of hygienic appliances or pharmaceuticals made from rubber. Certainly, we have abundant raw material of rubber here. Secondly, wholesale of pharmaceutical and medical products. Third, sterilization and disposal business. Fourth, e-commerce business. Fifth, wholesale of electronic equipment and parts. Sixth, general building cleaning business. Seventh, software creation business. Eighth, freight and package business. Ninth, wholesale of general products. And 10th, related business of accounting, auditing, and tax consulting. That reflects the need in particular situation that makes all of those business grow in a high speed. According to the new business legislation statistic collected between January and July 2020, the number of e-commerce business registrations rose by 35% compared to the same period of the previous year. The number of software creation businesses increased by 19%, which is in line with the rising trend of entrepreneurs applying online platform to the businesses. Furthermore, over 1,500 new companies specializing in food, packaging, and document delivery sprung up during January to July 2020, which was a 10% increase on the same period of the previous year. This reflects the changing lifestyles of consumers who are becoming more reliant on products and services online. In addition, the Ministry of Commerce has indicated particular post-COVID-19 trade strategy in the long term to restore and shape the economy. For instance, we will adopt the diversification of value chain and regionalization to mitigate risks. We will emphasize on localization and underlining the importance of the domestic market. We will create and support the development of the digital economy. And we are determined to establish industrial development clusters throughout the entire supply chain in order to select and promote high-quality products to the global market. Therefore, Thailand is now ready to execute our economic development into two dimensions. Firstly, the strengthening of domestic and local economy. And secondly, enhancing production capacity, especially in infrastructure, products, and services that adhere to the new international trade paradigm. In terms of trade promotion plans, the Ministry of Commerce has shifted almost all export promotional activities from offline with physical facilities to online business matching and trading. This is to help Thai businesses expand their markets amid the current crisis. So far, the ministry has managed to host various online trade exhibitions to overcome COVID-19 containment restriction, along with online sourcing and business matching platforms. Moreover, the ministry has given a hand to effectively support Thai products on foreign e-commerce platforms such as Tmall of Alibaba Group in China, Big Basket in India, Kliang.com in Cambodia, and even the world-renowned platform like Amazon. We are promoting Thai products through modern trade stores, shopping malls, and supermarkets in foreign countries. Thai products like food, electronic parts, medical equipment, pharmaceutical products, and furniture still have high demand in the foreign market. China and Hong Kong have been primary target destination markets of Thailand, both online and offline, during April to September this year, due to the easing up of the COVID-19 situation. However, in the United States, Europe, Middle East, and African region, the trade promotion plan will still focus mainly on online business matching and online platforms until the situation permits. Through all supporting factors such as the government's policy to support S-curve industry in the Eastern Economic Corridor and Thailand's capability in containing the COVID-19 outbreak, I have every reason to believe that Thailand can maintain our position as a prime trade and investment hub. My confidence was also reassured when the U.S. News and World Report again ranked Thailand as the best country to start a business last month, as recent as last month. This is the second year in a row where Thailand has topped the list. The ranking draws from the results of a global perception-based survey. It was based on scores from nearly 6,000 business decision makers in a compilation of 5 countries' attributes, namely affordability, bureaucracy, cheap manufacturing costs, connectivity to the rest of the world, and easy access to capital. Therefore, it serves as another testament to Thailand's resilience and readiness for trade, even under the new normal circumstance. I hope you find this policies useful and promising, we still believe that economic recovery can only be possible when every country in the world works together to ensure that trade and investment remain open and transparent. It is more important than ever for the government and private sector to work together to establish new and better practices in response to whatever situation after the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Standard Chartered Thailand, relevant institutions for organizing this event today. I have my full confidence that this online communication is not an obstacle for us to have an informative seminar where all participants can share and learn new ideas to be discussed later from every corner of the world. I wish the ASEAN Business Forum 2020 all possible success. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Bunyarit Kalayanamit, Permanent Secretary, Thailand's Ministry of Commerce. Thank you again for the opening remark. So Thailand is widely recognized as one of the countries in the world that has been quite successful in preventing the spread of COVID-19. But whatever lies ahead, this is the question that we're trying to answer here. So to get a bigger picture of what the future holds, could I welcome our first panelist, Ms. Duangchai Asawatjintachit, Secretary General, Thailand Board of Investment. So please, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, all participants. I'd like to start by telling you a bit about what the BY supportive system. Okay. I'm not trying to bore the audience away with all the details and information here, but I'd like just to say briefly that the BOI is offering both tax and non-tax incentives. And of course, we are running this kind of program for many decades, actually. The non-tax incentives are intended to help facilitate basically foreign investors. And particularly, we're running the one-stop shop for visas and work permits, which is becoming a very important issue at the moment because with the pandemic, we really need to get this service to help facilitate the entry and sojourn of expats. But before I go into further details, I'd like to just echo the Permanent Secretary's remarks earlier that Thailand is aiming to achieve the Thailand 4.0, and the so-called S-curve industries have been our targeted industries. And this intention is reflected in the BY incentives, tax incentive scheme. As a rule of thumb, at the moment, we are now running a scheme which focuses on attracting or encouraging investments that would be using higher technology. So basically, if you're in the sectors that would require higher technologies, you tend to get better tax incentives. That means a longer year or a longer period of tax holidays. And also, in virtually all sectors that are eligible for BOI investment promotion scheme, we are encouraging people to undertake activities that we deem very important to our future. These activities include research and development. Certainly, Thailand needs to do a lot more in order to come up with or to get over the so-called middle income trap. So research and development activities would play a very important role in this endeavor. Also, we are now focusing on using the BOI incentives to encourage human resource development. And we certainly believe that the private sector would be the best trainer for our people. So that's why we are now incentivizing companies in undertaking apprenticeship programs. And of course, companies like Siemens has been a very good role model for Thailand in terms of human resource development. Also, on a related issue, we are now also incentivizing companies in providing training, particularly advanced technology training, and such as automation, robotics, digitization, and so on. And and also we are encouraging people to commercialize local research results, because we would like to encourage our private sector to help commercialize or to turn out research results into innovation. That is and companies that undertake all of these, the so-called merit-based activities, can then get additional tax incentives on top of the basic incentive scheme. Since Thailand consists of many areas that could be identified as our targeted areas, or some areas might face some specific issues, such as some areas could be less developed than the rest of the country. Some areas could be playing important roles in terms of the our connectivity with our neighboring countries and so on. So we are also offering specific incentives for investments in the identified locations. For example, the Eastern Economic Corridor, which covers 3 provinces on the Eastern Seaboard, and also the 10 provinces that house the border special economic zones. And also we are encouraging companies to go into industrial estates and industrial zones. So we're giving additional tax incentives to all these areas. And I like to, talking about specific areas, I like to turn to the Eastern Economic Corridor, which is positioned as Thailand's new growth hub. And actually, we position the Eastern Economic Corridor as ASEAN's new growth hub, not only for Thailand, but for the whole region of ASEAN. And this area is expected to house investments that would be using higher technology. So we are now giving additional tax incentives to activities that would be using higher technologies, which cover a wide range of sectors. And we're covering both manufacturing and services. And since I mentioned earlier, we focus on encouraging human resource development. So we give additional tax incentives to companies if they undertake apprenticeship programs. So all of these tax incentives are being given to the Eastern Economic Corridor, which is already the most important industrial area in the country. This area houses 2 key important industries in the country, namely the petrochemicals industry and the automotive industry. And given the pandemic, and also given the trade tension that has been going on since last year, the BY is running a special scheme in order to stimulate investment. So we have these special measures that would be given to the targeted activities, which cover about 120 eligible categories, covering both manufacturing and services. And the rule is very simple. You just need to be in the targeted activities, and you just need to bring in at least 1 billion baht by the end of next year. And what you would get from doing this is that you would get, on top of your normal package, which is 5 to 8 years tax holidays, you would also get another 5 years of 50% reduction of corporate income tax. And given the current situation, we think that it is even more important to make sure that the existing companies in Thailand keep enhancing their productivity. So we have been giving additional tax incentives to companies if they undertake specific investments that would make them more productive, such as to use renewable renewable energy. We are subsidizing or we are incentivizing companies that have solar installations in their factory so that they would use less fossil fuels. We are also encouraging companies in turning to automation and digitalization. Given the changing demographic structure of Thailand, we need to convert our activities on, we need to rely more on automation. So we are incentivizing companies to move towards automation and digitalization. And of course, we are incentivizing existing companies to undertake R&D or advanced engineering designs, and also to upgrade, particularly in the agricultural sector. We would like companies to acquire or to obtain international standards, particularly sustainability certification. So these are the productivity enhancement measures we have been running for several years now, and we believe that this would be more important than ever. Talking about sectors of opportunities, I could spend a whole day talking about it, but I would just mention a few sectors that would be very much related to the pandemic. The first one would be the medical industry. Thailand has been playing an important role in this part of the world as a regional medical hub. We receive 3.5 million medical tourists a year, and Thailand is now the world's 5th largest medical tourism market. So this has led to a lot more demand in the local market, because we have consumers or demand from people who are coming from outside. So if we talk about medical industry, we talk about the medical device, pharmaceuticals, and also medical services. In order to support the medical industry in the country, the government is ramping up its investments in the so-called national quality infrastructure, such as laboratories, particularly certifying laboratories, strengthening our certifying bodies, and so on, to ensure that we would have all the necessary infrastructure ready. And the government is undertaking many new initiatives, such as currently there is a so-called Genomics Thailand Institute. We having the Medical Innovation District, which is right in Bangkok, in downtown Bangkok, and so on. So all of these initiatives would further enhance Thailand's position as a medical hub for this region. A lot more in their activities would be enhanced, apart from a lot of medical research which is already going on. And talking about medical devices, I'd like to just mention that a lot more innovations have been coming out from the pandemic, because we have more demand. So a lot of applications have been submitted during the first 6 months of this year. So given the time limit, I think the other sector that we would like to focus on is the digital industry. Needless to say, why there is so much demand for the digital industry as a result of the pandemic. We already have a large electronics industry in the country, and the data storage industry has been growing because of the pandemic as well. BCG model is now the philosophy underlying a lot of the wise policies in terms of creating opportunities and strengthening activities in the bio-based sectors. And last but not least, the BOI services. We have a lot of services to support investors, but we have this new scheme which has been around for a couple of years now, called Smart Visa, in order to attract foreign talents and foreign technologies and investment. And last but not least, we are also involved in the process of helping expats to enter Thailand during the crisis. I would like to stop my presentation here, because I think I have exhausted the time slot given to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. That was Ms. Duong Chai, Secretary General, Thailand Board of Investment. So let's do another view. This is going to be an academic view now. Please welcome Dr. Girida Paupichit, Director for Economic Intelligence Service, Thailand Development Research Institute, and see what they have to say here. So please, when you're ready.
Swadika, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I'd like to share some of the views from my institute, which is the Thailand Development Research Institute, on how we see the Thai economy and what are the opportunities that might be useful to you. So please allow me to share my screen because I have a few slides that I thought might be a good visual aid for everyone. So, okay, here we go. Right. So, as we know, we'll be in this COVID-19 pandemic for a much longer while, probably until the third quarter of next year, and by the time we're over this and the economy goes back to pre-COVID levels, it could be until 2022. So we're going to be in this for quite a while. But I must say that Thailand has gone through many crises, right, in the past, as you know. We went through the worst one was when there was the East Asian financial crisis in 1999. In that year, the Thai economy contracted by 8%. And we recovered from that. We then had the global financial crisis that affected us, and that year the Thai economy contracted by almost 5%. And then we had the big floods in 2011. If most of you remember, there was a shortage of hard disk drives around the world because some of the factories that produces hard disk drives in Thailand were flooded, and Thailand is one of the biggest producer of hard disk drives in the world, and we recovered from that as well. So we've overcome many crises in the past, and this is going to be another one that we will have to face. The Thai economy this year will probably contract by 10% or more. It's a global crisis, and Thailand depends a lot on the global economy. So hence, it does affect Thailand quite a bit. But I'd like to show you a comparison between Thailand and other countries in ASEAN and how we fare, at least for the moment. And if you look at the table, you will see that Thailand has many green buttons. The green buttons means that the risks are low for these macroeconomic indicators that are here at the moment, including the infection rate of COVID-19, which we're pretty low in the region as well. So we're on the macroeconomic front, we are very stable. We're very strong. We have a lot of international reserves, right? We have low government debt, low external debt in Thailand here. And and we have fiscal space to stimulate the economy if we need to. But of course, when you look at the GDP growth numbers, Thailand economy will contract by most in ASEAN this year, and that's just because we rely a lot more than other countries on the global economy, right? We rely a lot on exports. Exports is 54% of our GDP. Tourism, international tourism is 12% of our GDP. So when those, decline, we suffer as well. But that means that when those recover, right, we are in a good position to recover as well. So, we're poised for recovery here. But of course, during these, 2 to 2.5 years, we must weather it out, for these 2 to 2.5 years. And I must say that because we're weathering this, the baht has become weak, weaker actually than most other Asian currencies. If you look at the Thai baht compared to the Philippines peso, to the Malaysian ringgit, comparing the end of last year till now, the baht has depreciated vis-a-vis the US dollar by more than those currencies. The only currency that's weaker than Thailand right now is the Indonesia rupiah. So, even, in terms of, exchange rate competitiveness, we're also up there in ASEAN in terms of ASEAN countries. So it's not surprising that the baht will probably be around 31 to 31.5 baht for the rest of this year, and this is a consensus forecast. Which is an average of what the investment banks and other houses have forecasted, and that's just because we are receiving less capital inflows into Thailand this year compared to previous years, because exports, as I mentioned, tourism, foreign investments, and even portfolio investments are lower than last year. So that's why the baht is weaker, and it's actually one of the ones that weaken most in the region, except for Indonesia. So so that's on the external. Let me turn a bit more to what are the challenges and the opportunities that we see. Of course, the biggest challenge now is we have to weather this 2.5 years out, where exports is down. International tourism is almost non-existent because we're not allowing tourists to come into the country at the moment. So of course, many small and medium companies will suffer quite a lot, and there's a risk that many of them might have to shut down, and they might not last until post-COVID, and unemployment might reach 8.5% this year. That we'll have to deal with. The government will have to deal with. They have the fiscal space. They'll deal with that. But of course, if you look at this table, you'll see that there are many businesses that are heavily affected, and they employ lots of people, which is why unemployment could be high, like hotels, right? Like wellness and spas, even garment, manufacturers, and automobile and parts as well. So I must say that COVID-19 has affected sectors that are related to tourism and also to exports as well. So you can see here a whole list of businesses that are affected by COVID-19 here, including retail shops, shopping malls, property developers, and construction as well. So these companies, these businesses, and their supply chains are being quite affected. But of course, as Khun Dornjai mentioned, there are businesses that have been benefiting from the situation at the moment, right? Things like e-commerce, anything that is sold online, and their supply chain, meaning delivery services, packaging, is doing very well. E-services, e-tutorials, e-banking, e-entertainment, all these are doing very well. And of course, services that support them, such as, digital services or cybersecurity services, data protection services, those are all doing well, as well, right? Including telecom services, medical supplies, vitamins, masks, alcohol. They're all doing very well, and including insurance, because people are worried about their health, so they buy more insurance at the moment. So there are some businesses that have opportunities at the moment, but the majority of them, of course, are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. But I would like to probably point to you, 4 or 5 sectors that I think have the opportunity, and it's worth investing in for the moment before it actually recovers and everybody comes back into it. One is the tourism sector, which at TDRI we do research on this, and we find that tourism will recover post-crisis, post-COVID, right? When the virus is gone, Chinese tourists will come back. The Chinese tourists were about, actually a quarter of total tourists in Thailand. But post-crisis, we expect to have more of them because, tourists will probably travel more in the region, closer to home, to save money. And also, Chinese tourists might not want to go to Europe or the United States because of the anti-sentiments of Chinese people there. So, we expect to receive many, many more Chinese tourists as a share of the total number of tourists in Thailand. And surprisingly, Chinese tourists, before the COVID-19 pandemic, they were the top spender per day, in terms of international tourists in Thailand. So there are big spenders here, right? So we expect tourism to come back. We expect them, to be more regional tourism. And, there will be other opportunities as well around tourism, such as, health and wellness tourism, because Thailand, knock on wood, if we maintain a good name, of controlling COVID-19 pandemic, we will probably, be able to step up our, our wellness and our healthcare tourism, and that's a high-end tourism that we would like to have. So there are opportunities, and we already see some Thai businesses or companies investing in medical tourism at the moment already, such as the Dusit Thani Group, or or even the Bangkok Hospital Group. So these I think are opportunities that we can see after the pandemic. Of course, there are also other opportunities in terms of manufacturing and agriculture as well. Let me speak about manufacturing first. I think the biggest opportunity we see in manufacturing is the relocation that is coming from China, from whatever the trade war, from trying to diversify risks from pandemics. We are seeing a lot of diversification, relocation that is coming into Thailand. Of course, many of them are going to Vietnam, but Thailand is the second largest recipient of the relocation of capacity for China. From our research, it shows that companies that move to the Southeast Asia region are from everywhere. There are American companies, the Japanese companies, Taiwanese, South Koreans. They move out of China to Southeast Asia. But of course, they leave the capacity that are produced for the Chinese market in China. But the capacity to produce and export to other markets that used to be in China are now moved out to Southeast Asia. And you can see some of the examples that I've put here. Many of them are Japanese companies that have come to Thailand. Of course, they're Chinese companies as well, and they're mostly in auto and parts, computer and parts. So the more high-tech businesses are coming to Thailand, while Vietnam is getting a whole lot of investments on the labor-intensive businesses as well, because labor is still a bit cheaper there than in Thailand. So I think this is one opportunity that I see in terms of the relocation. There'll be more businesses coming from China into Thailand as well. In terms of agriculture, we have been sort of like the kitchen of the world for quite some time. So this is our strength actually, and we see that as the pandemic hits, many countries are trying to diversify their sources of food. So Thailand has an opportunity there to capture those markets as well, and also we have proven ourselves to be free from not only COVID-19 virus, but also animal virus, such as the African swine flu that is, really, really attacking pigs all over the region, which caused a shortage for pork. But Thailand has managed, to control that well as well, and we're still able to export meats, especially pork. So, so on the fronts of, of crops, of meats, we're still doing very well. We never shut down our rice exports when Vietnam or Myanmar or Cambodia did during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're a reliable source of food. And of course, in next phase, when bioproducts, are more popular, plant-based foods, meats, plant-based meats are more popular. There is a good chance of developing that in Thailand as well, because we have so much raw materials here, and it's cheap. The raw materials are much cheaper here than producing elsewhere and importing the raw materials. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, for the manufacturing and the agriculture, sector here going forward. So let me just turn to another sector which is big and which is suffering quite a bit right now in Thailand, which is the real estate market. As you know, there is already oversupply pre-COVID. With COVID, demand is down from both Thais and from both Chinese investors or buyers, who used to come and buy condominiums, in Bangkok and in big cities. So they're not coming anymore. So demand is down while supply is, in excess. So prices have really dropped at the moment in the Thai real estate market. And it's not only residential. Hotels, as I mentioned to you, have been suffering almost, the most from the pandemic. So many hotels are also for sale. Many nice, beautiful, big hotels are also for sale at the moment. So we'll see a lot of these, being sold, and of course there are opportunities for those with liquidity and cash at the moment, to come and buy those up. So as I see, there will be opportunities Also, as Kondonjai mentioned, the Eastern Economic Corridor is coming up. That hasn't stopped. I mean, the only engine that's running in Thailand right now, to be honest with you, is the government spending. So the government, from our studies, have not stopped investing. Anything that's in the pipeline, such as the East Economic Corridor, all infrastructure investments there are continuing. The three, the airports, the new airport in the East Economic Corridor, or the high-speed rail connecting the three airports in Thailand. That's all ongoing. So, there will be opportunities for also the real estate in the East Economic Corridor, because there are also smart cities that are being built, which is also ongoing. That hasn't stopped as well, and because the government has money and they need to spend it to boost the economy. So that will still continue. So here I've put down in the last 3-4 bullet points some of the opportunities that exist in the real estate market, such as large hotels, as I mentioned to you, which are on sale. Or even the fact that Thailand is aging very quickly, and we have a good reputation for hospitality, taking care of senior citizens. So high-end senior housing and facilities, will be an opportunity here, not only for affluent Thais, but also for people from all around the world who would like to to come and stay here in their old age. So that those are opportunities that we see in the real estate sector. And of course, Kondonjai has already mentioned a lot about digitalization. I mean, that will continue after the crisis, after the COVID pandemic. Definitely anything online, e-commerce, will continue. Well, when work from home has started, it will not go away. It might not be as much as during the lockdown, but well, it'll probably be much more than the pre-COVID time. So we'll be working from home. We need digital services. Companies need digital services. So there are opportunities for developing 5G cloud services, platforms, cybersecurity services. So anything that has to do with digitalization, has a lot of future here, as well as telemedicine. This is something that hospitals in Thailand, especially private hospitals, are now looking into as Thailand ages as well. And this is a way to save costs for hospitals as well. So there are some private hospitals and also public hospitals that are looking into starting telemedicine, which is online consultations with doctors. And doctors, after consultation, they will send medicine either by mail, by postal mail, or you could pick it up from a pharmacy near your home. So this is another opportunity here, and I see that Ping An Good Doctor, which is a big telemedicine company in China, is also now looking into Thailand and Southeast Asia as a whole, as a place to expand their market as well. So there are a few of these bright spots, and I think opportunities for the future that I see. I won't take much more time because we have another 2 speakers. So let me end there, and let me say that there's opportunities here, and the government still has a lot of fiscal space, and they can still spend, and they're continuing to spend as well. So any business that you're going to do with the government as well, that's another area of opportunity. So let me end there. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my slides. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, okay.
That was Dr. Girida, Director for Economic Intelligence Service, EIS, Thailand Development Research Institute. So that was sort of a academic's point of view of what the situation is right now and what the future holds. Let's now take a look at the public companies. Let's speak with Mr. Marcus Lorenzini, President and CEO of Siemens Energy Limited Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Also the Managing Director of Siemens Power Operation Incorporated Philippines, Siemens Energy, and Head of Siemens Energy Generation Sales ASEAN. So please, when you're ready.
Yes, sawadee krap. Good afternoon to everybody. I will promise you I will stay in my time limit. I have to say thank you to Standard Chartered to give us the opportunity to address our views on the 4 questions given to us, which are as follows. One is Siemens' positioning and prospects in Thailand and in the region, Thailand's competitiveness via peers, potential area for Thailand to grow and to attract foreign investment, and the last question given to us is comment on the country's infrastructure development and energy-related development. Starting with the first part, Siemens has a long-maintained economic and technical links within Thailand for over a century, and I'm proud to say that throughout the years we have formed strong partnerships and gained trust with local companies and the government through our quality and reliability of our products, solutions and services. Asia Pacific has always been an important region for Siemens and especially Siemens Energy. Thailand, as the second largest economy, Southeast Asia, always being one of our most focused countries. The significance of our business in Thailand is also the reason why the decision has been made for Siemens Energy in Thailand to go for a reverse carve-out and to remain in the original Siemens Limited company. The company was then recently renamed to Siemens Energy Limited. Siemens Energy annual order income accounts for approximately 60% of the entire Siemens business here in Thailand. Siemens has currently 5 entities in Thailand, which are Siemens Energy Limited, Siemens Industrial Limited, which has been renamed to Siemens Limited, Siemens Mobility Limited, Siemens Healthineers, and Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy. We still see growth opportunities in the country and neighboring countries such as Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos, where energy infrastructure is still needed to be improved, both in capacity and stability. We have built up a regional competence center for medium and small gas turbines serving the entire region out of Thailand. Furthermore, we have established a maintenance repair workshop in Mataput where we continuously developing the capabilities and planning to make use for future technologies. This brings me to the second question given to us, Thailand's competitiveness via peers. We believe that the infrastructure in the country makes a difference in attracting foreign investments compared with their neighboring countries. Thailand has set a benchmark in reliable electricity supply via EGAT, MEA, PA, the IPPs and SPPs, which also generate industrial steam supply. Reliable electricity supply is the basis for investment. Without electricity, there is no automation and there is no digitalization. The digital infrastructure comprising of broadband internet access across the countries are essential to attract new investment, and Thailand has done well with it. Education and training of local workforce is of utmost importance to remain competitive. New technologies require different or more advanced skills. Talents will need to be developed, which is also what we emphasize in our organization. English language proficiency has been improved, but still needs to consistently improve, especially in the age of digitalization. Additionally, with the global pandemic, Thailand has managed to contain the spread of infections in the country very well. I hope that Thailand will be able to open its borders again soon, especially for business missions, for projects, investment and technicians. Thailand's businesses are highly related and interconnected with other countries. Traveling is mandatory to keep the business running. Which brings me to the third part, potential area of Thailand to grow and attract foreign investment. Once the pandemic improves, region and globally, we believe that the manufacturing industries recover for the reason that Thailand is an attractive investment location between the West and the East with a decent and reliable infrastructure. As the global trend for the energy sector is now shifting towards renewable energy and decarbonization, we have seen also that our customers are aiming to invest more in renewables. Starting from South Asia, is Asia's largest onshore wind farm project in Korat in 2012. We have now see more and more power generation from renewable sources such as biomass power plants, waste fuel power plants, and solar. Digitalized energy infrastructure as fleet control centers and digital substations will become increasingly important for Thailand, especially with regards to resilient transition grids and uninterrupted power supply when moving into the future energy supply. Decarbonized energy systems as hybrid plants and hydrogen technologies can help Thailand to reduce CO2 emissions and achieve its ambitious climate goals. Coming now to the last question given to us, coming to the last part of my presentation today, or small view, energy infrastructure development. Projects in the energy industries are planned long term, especially for power generation. Planning has been laid out in the latest power development plan for Thailand until 2037. As for power generation and related power transmission, we are carefully positive about future demand as well as the future needs of energy infrastructure based on 4 areas. First, Eastern Economic Corridor and export industries. Thailand will remain important for exporting industries with the full government support as mentioned in earlier presentations today. Second, digitalization. With the Thailand 4.0 strategy, the country is on the right path. Digitalization needs stable electricity for connect devices, new data centers, and new Industry 4.0 manufacturing. Third is renewable energy. New renewable energy capacity of more than 20 gigawatts based on solar, biomass, and wind are outlined in the current power development plan until 2037. This capacity still has to be connected to the grids and being integrated. Last but not least, cross-border electricity trade. Transmission grid connections on high voltage AC and DC technology, especially with Myanmar and Cambodia, will be great opportunities to sell overcapacity in electricity to countries where domestic power supply is still insufficient. Herewith, I'm coming to the end and I'm looking forward to the upcoming Q&A part. Thank you very much for paying attention to our perspective.
Okay, thank you so much. That was Mr. Marcus Lorenzini, President and CEO of Siemens Energy Limited Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Thank you so much, Mr. Lorenzini. So that was from Siemens' point of view, very interesting things on renewable energy and also what the future holds. Let's now hear from an economist, from Dr. Tim Leelahapan, economist of Thailand Standard Chartered Bank, and see what he has to say. So when Kun Tim is ready, Dr. Tim, please.
I would now like to take this opportunity to brief you on Thailand from the financial market perspective and questions we have recently received from our corporate clients. We believe that the Thai economy bottomed in the second quarter. The Thai government and the Bank of Thailand have launched policies to help shore up the economy. The Bank of Thailand has focused on liquidity support for small and medium-sized enterprises, which account for around 40% of the country's GDP and have been particularly affected by COVID-19. Financial markets, including bond markets, have stabilized after a sell-off in March, with ongoing support from the central bank. Interest rates have stayed low. The currency has always been of interest of foreign investors looking to invest in Thailand, as well as to our corporate clients. And as Dr. Girida commented earlier that this year during the peak of the pandemic, Thai baht was underperforming regional peers. The Thai baht has now started to stabilize, and we expect it to stay at this level, but with a strengthening bias towards the end of 2020 and early 2021. The issue of Thai baht strength has been a key focus for foreign investors as the currency has strengthened around 15% over the past 5 years, from 36 baht to the US dollar in 2015 to around 31 now. The currency was the best performer in Asia last year. We believe this was partly due to the strength of Thailand's external balance, despite the negative impact of US-China trade tensions on exports from the region. Thailand has strong inflows through the tourism sector in addition to goods trade. The Thai Central Bank has initiated measures over the past couple of years to reduce the volatility of the currency and reduce speculative flows that may have caused the Thai baht's pace of appreciation to be out of line with regional peers. Further central bank initiatives related to foreign exchange markets will be watched closely, but we have learned from the Bank of Thailand that the main objective of these measures is to limit volatility in the baht. Also, investors have observed several episodes of political division in Thailand over the past years. We think private sector has shown resilience to political developments. Having said that, the post-pandemic economic recovery will require political continuity and support from the government and fiscal policy. Looking back at 2016 and 2017, Thailand was able to reach its potential growth level of 4% with a greater role played by public spending and investment. We share the views of the earlier speakers that the key issue for Thailand post-COVID-19 and over the medium term in how to boost the country's potential. The country is building infrastructure and is ready to welcome foreign direct investment. We believe sectors including electronics, automobiles, agriculture, food, and tourism are key to Thailand's economy and have potential for further growth and upgrading. Thailand has the potential to become an economic hub, both industrial and agricultural, for the ASEAN region, benefiting from its geographical location at the center of the high-growth CLMV countries and its status as the second largest economy in the ASEAN region. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. Some interesting things about the Thailand economy and how it can possibly become a hub for a lot of things. So now I would like to start our Q&A session. So if we could bring the screens of the other panelists up. Welcome, Dr. Grida. Welcome, Mr. Marcus. I will now ask some questions from our viewers. Kun Duangchai will be joining us in a few moments. So, first question, I think we should pose it towards Kun Marcus. Sawasdee krap, Kun Duangchai. Welcome back.
Sorry.
So, first question, Mr. Marcus, you talked about the energy, and you talked about a lot of renewable energy. What specifically, what does the future hold for Thailand, and how this renewable energy can further be developed?
I think, as I mentioned, it's laid down in the power development, where the government is up to 20 gigawatts in renewable energy. until 2037, and this is the fuel mix out of wind, out of solar, biomass, and waste to energy. And these are opportunities definitely, on one hand, to be an investor of these kind of power generation opportunities, as well as related infrastructure investments on grid and grid stability and transmission of this energy, because the renewable itself needs to be brought to the grid and needs to be also integrated into the grid to make sure that there is a continuous stable, I would say, power supply to all the consumers. This gives, of course, a lot of people, on one hand, the opportunity to invest in this kind of projects, but on the other hand, it gives you also an indication that Thailand is ready for a growing, I would say, investment, for growing manufacturing opportunities and factories, and whatever is related also to digitalization, as I spelled it out, on data centers and many other things. I think definitely having the investment in Thailand, you have already, I would say, paved the necessary infrastructure, and the government has very well done to prepare it for the future.
So renewable energy is looking quite well in Thailand then.
It's one of the elements. The basis is, of course, mainly on gas. This is stabilizing it. So the different models I explained between government and private investor and small power producers, which mainly are then in the heart of the economy of Thailand, in the Eastern Economic Corridor, the most of them there. That this gives the confidence for foreign investors to invest in Thailand rather than to other neighboring countries, which are not as far as developed as Thailand right now.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to Dr. Grida and also Kun Duangchai. Dr. Grida mentioned that Thailand is, their tourism industry is 12% of the GDP, as you mentioned. Exports are 54% of GDP. Our viewers have asked, is it time to decrease dependency on tourism? Dr. Grida or Kun Duangchai, would you like to, one of you, answer that?
Kun Duangchai, would you like to go first?
Please go ahead.
Sure. Our view here at the Thailand Development Research Institute is that, the Thai market is quite small. As I mentioned to you that, we are, 60-something million people and we're aging. So the market here is small, and to be able to sustain the growth the way we have been sustaining, we would need to expand, the market to overseas, which is what we've been doing for the past, decades. So I would say that, dependency on tourism or on the service sector is actually still needed in Thailand. It could be boosted actually even more if needed. Actually, when we look at the share of services in Thailand to its GDP or to its economy, it's only about 50%, which is considered not very high for a country of this stage of development. It could be higher. So it's the fact that many of our services here might be of low value. We have to develop a service sector so that it's higher value. It's more to the telecom, to the banking, to the architects and engineers, rather than to the cab drivers or to the waiters and waitresses. So that's, I think, the way we should go. We should not close ourselves to the international markets.
Yeah. I would agree with certainly with Dr. Grida. Given the size of the Thai economy, with 67 million consumers, you can afford to grow simply on the domestic market. But I think the pandemic has triggered probably the repositioning of Thailand's tourism sector. We've been talking about affluent tourism for many years, but we often use the number of tourists as our key performance indicator. rather than spending. But with the pandemic, I think now we are seriously refocusing the tourism industry in Thailand in order to cope with the current situation. But as regarding the exports, I think representing the BOI, certainly we have been promoting export-oriented manufacturing for many decades, and particularly now with the trade conflict that has been going on, it is more important than ever that we are trying to receive some of to benefit from some of this relocation. But we need to attract the industries or activities that would help increase, or that would have more linkages to the other segments in the local economy. You know, not just an island of exporters.
See. Okay, so still very important. This question is from Mr. Alfie Galatis from the Philippines, and it's for Dr. Tim. So they asked about tourism, as we are talking about tourism. How did Thailand actually overcome the issue on whether or not to reopen tourism, and possibly what the future holds? Because there's also special visa tourism as well right now in the news. Dr. Tim?
Sure. I think the country is still depending on the tourism sector, as mentioned earlier, that tourism sector accounts 15% of the country's GDP. And I think the country has been under the lockdown in terms of the foreign investors, foreign arrivals coming to the country for 6 months already. So I think it's still hard for government, or it's still hard for the agency to make a decision whether or not to reopen the tourism sector for foreign arrivals. But I think the country is depending on the tourism sector, and I think it's necessary, in our views, that in the short term we need to reopen gradually the sector to allow in foreign visitors, which would boost the country's economic growth the rest of this year and early next year. Economy has been contracting for 2 quarters already. I think it's time that the country should start to gradually reopen the sector.
Okay, so the same view as CEO of Minor, Mr. Heineke, who also said to try to reopen the economy, and if things don't go very well, you can always try to close it again. Talking about the dependence on tourism, Kun Duong Chai, somebody asked from our viewer, is it time for Thailand to reduce its dependence on tourism and possibly start focusing on manufacturing and other services? What do you think?
Actually, we've been focusing on manufacturing and services all along, not just tourism. As I think manufacturing represents about 35% of the GDP. That is, the government has been focusing on manufacturing for a long time. I just think that it's about time to focusing more on services, not just manufacturing. I think most of the government policies or the promotional policies and so on are often geared towards manufacturing, but it's time to gear more towards services, particularly high-value services. Just since I have the floor, I'd like to also touch upon the issue of reopening the economy, reopening the country for tourists. Since I just came back from a meeting at the government house, and
okay.
we are cooking up a scheme that would help us reopen the economy. You know, we have to do it on a selective basis, I think. Not just to open the country for any tourists, but as I think it has been mentioned by several of the speakers in this panel, that I think the sector that will benefit would be wellness, high-end tourism, and so on. And also the government has been talking about special arrangements with some countries, 4 countries, 1 administrative region, and the BY happened to be part of the discussion. So we hope that these new arrangements would be coming out soon, in order that we could help revive the economy. And that could be actually today I proposed some new measures at the meeting that would help stimulate the real estate business in Thailand by linking the real estate purchases by foreigners to perhaps permanent residence permits and so on.
Or for condos, but not for land, correct? For condos and
houses. For condos or property funds, investments in property funds.
Investments in property funds. Okay, so more focusing towards high-end tourism, particularly from Asia, not from Europe or
actually,
the U.S.
From anywhere.
Anywhere. Okay, because the special visa tourism that they're trying to do right now, they have a 14-day quarantine as well, and then they have a long-term stay commitment that they need to follow by. Correct?
Yes. But as we talk, investors, engineers, technicians, there has never been a complete lockdown because we do allow people to come in, but of course they have to go through the 14-day quarantine.
Okay, that's very interesting. So this is fresh news, new news. Okay, so very updated. Is there anything Dr. Grida or Dr. Tim would like to add before we end our session?
No, I'm good, unless there are more questions.
Okay. Dr. Tim, would you like to add anything?
I think just to summarize our view from Standard Chartered Bank, we believe that the economy has passed the worst of the pandemic already. I think the country is going to recover rest this year and early next year, maybe gradually, but we are recovering from the pandemic. Thailand has potential, lots of potential in lots of sectors, and we are playing on the benefit of being the center of the mainland ASEAN region. The CLMV countries, neighboring countries, are providing huge potential opportunities for investing in Thailand. I think Thailand is doing good, and is doing good in terms of the short term after the pandemic, and the medium term and the longer term. I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you to all our panelists. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. The ASEAN Business Forum 2020 Thailand session, and today is Thailand Resilient and Ready for Trade. So once again, thank you, everybody, for being with us this afternoon. Before we conclude, I would like to invite all of you to let us know what you think of today's webcast by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link after this particular webcast has ended. So right now we are in the latest chapter of Standard Chartered Brand Story. They have a short film prepared for everybody today, directed by Mark Waring, the stop animation expert at the heart of Wes Anderson's Oscar-nominated films, Isle of Dogs, and also Fantastic Mr. Fox. So the story is actually quite interesting. Story tells of 2 villages with their produce and how they can create something even better when they exchange what they have. Now, this reinforces Standard Chartered's unwavering commitment to driving global trade, especially in today's climate, as we continue to keep trade flowing and being here for good. So please enjoy. My name is Danny Pichapat. Have a good afternoon. Sawadee krap.
The world feels smaller when we're separated. And that's not good enough. We believe the world is a better place when we exchange what we have. That's why we've been driving global trade for over 160 years. And we continue to do so, even in these uncertain times. Because we're not here for good enough. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.